Hello guys and welcome to our series on Introduction to Vue.js. In this video, we'll be discussing about how to access events from DOM elements in Vue.js. Before we move forward, please do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also press the bell icon so that you don't miss on any new notifications of any new videos that we put across. So to access any DOM events in Vue.js, we have a directive called v_on_directive. Now, the syntax for v_on_directive is v_on: and the event name that you want to access from the DOM. So it can be click, it can be blur or key up events that you have. So for this, we simply have to write v_on: and then the event name. And after that followed, we have to mention the function or the method name that we have created inside the Vue script tag. This function is just a mapping, this syntax is just mapping of that function name where we are not passing anything into the function. So this is just calling a function with no signature. Now, if there can be scenarios where you want to access the event variable that is generated by the DOM element itself. So you can also use this syntax where you call the function with the $event. Now this $event is a default event that is given by the DOM element, and that can be passed to your function to check if in case of, like, for example, key press. So you want to know which key is actually pressed. If you want to restrict any sort of key, like any symbol key or any particular keys, you need to know the key which is pressed. So you need this event variable anyways in your function. So you can pass this function as well. You can also pass other variables that exist inside the DOM element as well. So let's say if you're using the for directive and you have a list of users and you want to pass only the ID of the particular user for which this event is being raised, you can also pass that ID of that particular user into the function. We'll see how to do that in a while. And we have a shortened syntax for eliminating the v_on: from our typing, and we can directly replace it with @. So because this is very common thing that we use in a Vue.js, so Vue.js has given us a shorthand symbol or shorthand notification for that. So we can use @ in place of v_on: and everything falls in place as is. So you can also access the key up only for enter or a blur event or this sort of event. Now, if you remember, we had created a login form in our previous videos. Now I would bind some events into this login form and we'll have some console logs so that we know that what is actually happening inside and how we are binding the DOM element. So the first thing that I have binded in this is, let's say, the blur event on the user text box. So whenever we have a blur event being raised from DOM, I want to call this function that exists inside my methods. So to create any method inside your Vue.js component, what you have to do is you have to just create a method as we created the data tag, right? So similarly, after data tag, you have to create a method object, and there you will give all the functions that can be exposed to your HTML directly. So here you have created this, like for example, this on submit. I have created this username blur function. Now this username blur function is having no variables that it is expecting inside it as a signature. So over here we are just printing in console that the function name. So let's see if this event is actually binding or not. Let's go to console. Let's clear the console first. Now if I go and I do a blur event. So blur event is normally when you focus out of the text box. So we see that we have got this printed over here. If you want to see it in more detail, you can also add a debugger so that you can access or you can actually debug anything that you wish. So if you see, we've got the debugger over here. So this is a plain event where we are not passing anything into the signature. Now let's see how we can pass the event variable into the signature. Now I have also binded and submit event which would be accessing the dollar event variable. And if you see, I have used the actual full syntax of v-on directive. So v-on and click on the submit button. So this is the submit button or sign in button that we had on the UI. So over here, I want to access the event variable. Now let's see, we have a event, we have mapped this to on submit function in our Vue.js component, and let's hope that everything is correctly mapped and we get the event there. So first thing is we had a disable of this button on some validation. So let's validate the form correctly so that this button is enabled. Now when we have this button enabled, I have clicked on this button and I can see that event is a mouse event that we have got, and I've printed that event on the console, and also have printed an information with the submit text. So let's see if we are getting all this on the console. So if you see, I've got the mouse event over here, which contains coordinates and everything that is there in the mouse event. So everything, every details that are actually present and available to you on the mouse event. And then there is an info text that is definitely printed via this line. So this is how you can pass the event variable. Now let's see how you can pass an variable that is not $event but a normal variable inside your function. So for that, we had a for each the for directive running on this, and now I want to add an click event on this so that I can pass the ID of the user being clicked on, and so that we can print that as well. So what I have done is I have created li for element. So for is there, this for directive is there on the user list, and now I have created a click event where I have said which user has selected. This is my function which would be called when click event happens, and I would only want to pass the actual user ID of the user being clicked. So this li correspond to one user. So this is one user, then we have three li being created. So for each li, this function will be binded and it would pass the corresponding ID of the user that is there in that particular li. And if you see this function inside your Vue.js component script tag, so I've got the user ID and I've said that selected user ID and user ID have also concatenated what I have received in the function. Now let's see if we are getting the correct value of the user ID. Now you also know that we have also printed the user ID so that we can validate this. So when I click on ID 1, so if you see, I've got the ID as 1 over here. And if I go to console and see, I've got selected user ID is 1. Let's click on the second one. I've got the user ID as 2. So this is the actual thing that we wanted, and it's behaving as expected, and we can pass anything that we want. Now we can also pass the event variable along with this. So event and ID is there. So what we can do is we can pass both the things even if we are not using it right now for our use, but we can definitely pass it through event. And now Vue.js will give you an error if you have created a variable and not used it. So we'll also print this so that we have this thing. So now let's run the server again and see the changes being reflected. So now when you see, when I click on ID, I also get this mouse event of click. So click event is there on first, then I get the selected user ID as 1. When I click on the third one, I get again the mouse event, and then I get the selected user ID as 3. So I can access both the variables. So this is the default event variable and this is the user defined variable that we get into the DOM element. So we can access both the things and we can pass those both into the functions or the event handlers in the Vue.js. Thank you for watching the video. Please do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also press the bell icon so that you don't miss on any notifications of any new videos or series that we put forward. We would love to hear from you of any feedbacks or any tutorial that you want us to do of any specific features of the language which we have put across, or any new language that you want us to make videos on. So we would appreciate if you can comment on the videos, and we would definitely reach out and look forward to uh, answer your queries.